Everyone has that list of games they say they'd replay, but honestly, I rarely do. And the older I get, the more I realize that might not be a bad thing. Off the top of my head, I've only truly replayed a handful. The Final Fantasy VII series, Fire Emblem Awakening, Elden Ring, Pokémon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Time, and Final Fantasy XVI. And even then, there was always a reason. A new expansion, a favorite story I wanted to revisit, or just something I didn't fully understand the first time. So what usually stops me? Most of the time, it's not even about being too busy. It's about commitment. I'm also an avid reader. I'll reread my favorite books every 5-ish years. Percy Jackson, Aragon, Ranger's Apprentice, usually because I forget the little things, even if I remember how it ends, and I can just read a chapter before bed and pick it back up the next night. But for games, I personally can't just drop in and play for a few minutes. It has to be for like a solid hour, many hours sometimes. And if I already remember the ending, even if I've forgotten the smaller beats, I just don't feel like I can justify going through it all again for video games. Funny thing is, I didn't even realize that until trying to write this script. I always assumed I replayed games less because of time, but maybe it's more about how much a replay demands. There's no reset button for how the story made me feel the first time. If I could forget it all and relive it, I would. I've literally wished I could erase the Maze Runner books from my memory just to experience it fresh again. But games don't really let me do that. Well, except for the FF7 Remake series. But that's not just nostalgia. That's obsession. It's my favorite games of all time. The story is incredible, unless they mess it up in part 3, and the combat is pretty much exactly what I want from a game. I think it's the perfect mix of action and turn-based gameplay. And because the remake is really just a sequel in disguise, every replay feels like research. I want to catch something I missed. Not trying to compete with anyone, but just because that's how I interact with the stories I care about. Sometimes I'm already digging through YouTube and Reddit before I even finish the game. I also don't play games the way I reread or rewatch other stuff. I'd love to say it's just where I'm at in life, work, priorities, backlog guilt, but even if I had more time, I honestly don't know what I'd go back to. Maybe I've just changed. And for books and movies, it's not like I never rewatch or reread things. I'll revisit my favorite books or shows every 5-ish years, just long enough for the story to feel hazy again. But games are different. They're long, demanding, and usually still fresh in my memory by the time new content arrives. So when a DLC drops, 6 months or a year later, I'm stuck. I don't want to replay the whole game just to reach it, but I also don't want to jump straight to the DLC and worry about missing context I forgot about, especially when I'm the type of person who wants to understand every little story beat. With FF16, I only replayed it because of the new DLC, and I kinda hated going through the whole game again just to reach it. It made the game's flaws harder to ignore, flaws I could look past the first time because I was chasing the story. And when DLC drops right after the actual release, it starts to feel like it was carved out from the main game to be sold back to you. It's a lose-lose for me. I'd rather devs just include everything up front, or make the DLC standalone, or better yet, just make a full sequel. But maybe it's not even the games. Maybe it's the culture. Everything online is about what's next. Only a few of the creators I watch cover old games. It feels like most creators move on after launch week. So maybe it's not that people don't appreciate what they've played, it's just that no one's encouraged to stay. So what would make a game worth replaying? And honestly, I'm not totally sure. Sometimes phenomenal combat helps, sometimes multiple endings. Fire Emblem 3 Houses gave me 4 different routes, and that definitely helped. And that's the thing. I used to think branching narratives would scratch that replay itch, but after playing Baldur's Gate 3, it feels like most games don't actually let you shape the world that much. BG3 felt alive, and everyone and everything reacted to what I did. So replaying it actually felt different, even with my childhood favorites. I want to say they wouldn't hit as hard today, but part of me also thinks they would. Maybe I just don't replay them because I'm scared they won't. I used to think replaying something was proof I loved it. Now I think the opposite might be true. If a game can stick with me after just one playthrough, years later, maybe that's all it needed to do. And maybe that's enough.